First Paw Media. You are listening to Mushing on First Paw Media. Visit our website at mushing.com. Nobody covers dog sledding like Mushing from First Paw Media. Our team of athletes, volunteers, race organizers, and mushers like Robert and Michele Forto brings you closer to the sport. If it's happening, we are there. Live from the qualifying races in January and February, the Iditarod in March, and in the summer, Mushing takes you on the road with our team and trail tour. We connect you with a history of the sport, in-depth interviews with the top mushers, and great storytelling and breaking news all year long. Follow on mushing.com.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Robert and I'm joined by my co-host Michele, and we are continuing our Iditarod 2024 coverage here on the Burled Arch. It is Saturday and everybody is in off of the trail, and it's sort of a lull before the storm, if you will, before the big celebration and banquet tomorrow night. So before we jump into any stories, since last night, we have the last few mushers that rolled in, and that include Joshua Robbins, Severin Cathry, and Jeff Reed. If you recall, last night we talked about what is Jeff going to do? Is he going to make it into Nome, or was he going to be forced to scratch in safety just about 22 miles from the finish? And he did what we thought he would do. He finished in the middle of the night, coming in to earn the Red Lantern Award at 2:22 a.m. So we are happy to report everybody is in and the Willows lamp is extinguished out on the trail. Michele, what are your thoughts on the last few mushers that rolled into Nome?
You know, I am very pleased to see that the last three rookies did make it in. Unfortunate about Sean Williams and everyone else that had to scratch for various reasons this year. But all in all, the Iditarod has come to a close, and I'm excited about the banquet.
So all in all, we had 29 finishers, and unfortunately we had 9 scratches. So about 10% of the field had to scratch, and that seems a little high compared to normal years, but hey, it was a tough year all around for various factors. So before we go any further, let's congratulate Dallas Seavey, Matt Hall, Jesse Holmes, Jeff Reeder, Paige Drobny, Travis Beals, Millie Porcelid, Amanda Otto, Pete Kaiser, Jesse Royer, Wally Robinson, Nick Petit, Matt Failer, Ryan Reddington, Josie Tier, Jason Mackey, Bailey Vitello, Gabe Dunham, Jessica Klika, Mats Peterson, Anna Barrington, Will Rhodes, Laura Kittleson, Anna Hennessy, Benjamin Good, Laurel Eklund, Josh Robbins, Severin Cathry, and Jeff Reed. 29 finishers for the 2024 Iditarod. And remember that they paid down to, I believe, 20th place. Everybody after that is receiving a check. I believe they raised that amount. I think now it is $2,000 over the commemorative $1,049. So they did up that a little bit. We will have a full breakdown of the awards and who won what and the purse breakdown and all of that tomorrow. We will probably host our show a little bit later, so we have some breaking information to give you if you're not able to watch the banquet online. We're going to do sort of a play-by-play if we can, and hopefully present that on tomorrow's podcast. But before we go further, I know I've said that a couple of times, we do have to make a couple of corrections. The first correction is that it was not an urban legend. It was actual fact that Ali Zirkle did break somebody's arm at the arm wrestling tournament in Nome. And there's a story posted over on our Facebook page by one of our astute fans who found that for us, found a YouTube of Ali Zirkle talking about that, and that is posted over there. Michele, any other stories?
Not that I saw today. I'm just glad that people are enjoying Nome. That's also not something that usually happens. Usually everybody that's coming in right up to the banquet and sometimes after the banquet. So every musher that finished is getting to enjoy Nome and the people of Nome and probably participating in some of those events you listed off the other night.
Yeah, some cool ones that we did not announce in Nome. Of course, they do all sorts of stuff all week long. They do have a golf tournament in Nome. You're playing on the sea ice with, I believe, you're playing with orange balls. They also have what they call the Nome National Forest, which is just off of the front street there, where they put Christmas tree type trees out there and a sign and some cutouts of gnomes and all that. You can go out there and visit that, because if you have never been there, there are no trees in Nome, and they're still doing sled dog tours and presentations at the National Park Service right there as well. And of course, the craft fair and all the meet and greets are happening. A lot of dogs are already flying home. I did see a lot of that today. The dogs are loaded up on various airlines and then shipped off to awaiting handlers, wherever that may be, whether they're in Anchorage or Fairbanks or points on beyond that. All the dogs have to go to Nome. They have to ship out crates to every dog team out to Nome, and then those crates are, of course, loaded up and placed on the airplane along with the sleds and any other gear. And that is covered by your entry fee. That's one of the few things that is still covered by the entry. And that does include I believe that includes the Mushers ticket back as well. I do not think that it includes the handlers or family. Obviously it would not, because you could bring the whole contingent up if they paid for that. So it does not include the family or the handlers to fly to Nome. So with that being said, you definitely have to have somebody back at home holding down the fort. Of course, most of these kennels have larger kennels than the dogs that are racing, so somebody has to be able to pick them up and carry them on. It's only about an hour and a half flight from Nome to Anchorage, so they have to load them up with the dog truck and then take them back. And I'm sure that most of the dogs are happy to be back home for sure. I know that we have done that a few times for a couple of Mushers. Michele, can you break that down for us? How does that whole process go, not only for Nome, but all throughout the race? How has that gone for us?
We have enjoyed when we were able to do that service for dog mushers that were participating in the race. Basically what would happen is I would get a text message or a phone call from the volunteers that used to be holed up at the Millennium, now known as the Lakefront, and letting me know that so-and-so's dogs are coming in, which dog it would be. Sometimes I would get the name of the dog, sometimes I wouldn't, and then I would go to the cargo section at the Ted Stevens Airport. Typically it was Northern
Air Cargo.
Yes, typically it was Northern Air Cargo. I almost said Northwest. Anyhow, you go in, you show them your ID, you tell them which dog you're there to pick up for which musher, and then they will release that dog to you. It's very helpful that the mushers list their names on the dog crates. That way you know exactly which dog you're picking up, especially if you're providing this service and you're not familiar with their dogs. Then I would load them up in my truck, bring them back to our place in Willow, and then we had and still do have an area in our dog kennel that I can keep these dogs away from my personal sled dogs, so that we're not cross-contaminating the area, so that neither my dogs nor this dog is gonna make anybody sick. And so then we take care of that dog until the musher is able to retrieve those dogs.
Yeah, and in years past, I don't think since COVID, they do the women's prison program anymore. Before, they would send all the dogs either over to the lakefront for the pickup, or to the women's prison up in Eagle River, Alaska, which is about 15 miles or so from downtown. And the prisoners would take care of the dogs, and you could actually pick them up from there, or they would handle the dogs until the musher and or the handlers were able to get there. But I remember a few times that we were doing that, Michele, they would call us up on, say, a Tuesday morning, and they'd say, hey, George is here. And then we would drive the hour and a half down, the hour and a half back, and lo and behold, later that night, they would call us and say, hey, Max is here. And we would have to either drive back down the same day or the following morning. So we were putting quite a few miles on our cars during those couple of years that we were doing that.
Yes, and when we were picking them up at Highland, it was very inconvenient because you literally had less than 24 hours to get the dogs. When they were flying into the airport, it was a little bit easier, I should say, because they would just release the dogs directly to you in batches, literally in batches. If not, you were getting the entire team. We did that once, where we picked up an entire team in the Northern Air Cargo area, and I was actually parked next to Dallas CV's handler that year, and we were both just loading up dogs.
Yeah, and remember that every dog gets a little name tag, or kind of like a name tag. It says the Iditarod number, your musher number, and I don't think it says dog number. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I guess that's time for another correction for tomorrow. And then that's how that they are kept on track during this whole process. I know that dogs are chipped and all that, and that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, it's good to know the names. I know that we have always followed suit and had embroidered tags with all of our dogs' names on the collar. So it would say Forto and Bodie. So that way, if a person found the dog or picked up the dog, they would know exactly who it belonged to and the dog's name, which is always helpful for sure. So let's move over and talk about some of the traditions that happened in Nome from the very beginning. And this is coming from the insider section on Iditarod.com. So in the earliest days, when they decided to run the race all the way to Nome, they knew they had to have some type of finish. And what started off as something as basic as Kool-Aid dust, they would sprinkle the Kool-Aid powder across the road there, and that would be the official finish. And then they figured they had to do something a little bit more grand, if you should say. And he thought that they should do what is now known as the Burled Arch. So they fixed it up, and it cost $1,300 to ship up this first version of the Burled Arch. And that was for the 1975 race. And that particular arch reigned for 25 years before it broke into pieces and was retired. The one-of-a-kind symbol of accomplishment was placed back together and now hangs in a prominent location inside the Nome Recreation Center, where the banquet is held. And I know that we asked last night where that was held, so we now know that it is in the Nome Recreation Center. The next Burled Arch was donated by an artist from a spruce tree, and he fixed it up near his home in Hope, Alaska. Hope, Alaska is about an hour and a half or so south of Anchorage, so it's pretty much dead in the middle of a trip from Anchorage to the peninsula down by Kenai, Seward, that sort of part of the country there. And they inscribed "End of the Iditarod Sled Dog Race," and that is the arch that we see today. And if you did not know, they pick up this arch, and it does not look very tall at all in person. I know that you've seen it. I've seen it several times in Nome. They pick it up with a front loader and move it from one location to the other. In recent years, it is held pretty much in sort of a playground / park area of the local church. And I know when we were there earlier this summer, we visited that, and it does not look very big, does it, Michele?
No, it doesn't. In fact, the gold pan that it's parked next to in that park is bigger.
It is. So also on the Burled Arch is the fabled widow's lamp, and that is the lamp that the last musher extinguishes when he arrives with the last place finish. He will reach up on it and he will extinguish the lamp. It's a kerosene lamp, and that harkens way back to the day where in the roadhouses they would turn on a lamp in one of the windows or on the windowsill or somewhere around. So for passersby that came by, they would know that that particular roadhouse or lodge is open and accepting visitors. And I always get a kick out of thinking about that old Motel 6 commercial where they say, "We'll leave the light on for you." That is hearkening back to something very similar to this, where they had these widow's lamp or something of the such in these villages, so you could stop by and grab a meal or a beer or whatever along the way of the trail. So that is a very cool tradition of Iditarod. And then of course the red lantern that we talked about yesterday is given to the last finisher, and as Michele said in her history part of it, it started as a joke for, I believe you said, the Fur Rondy back in the 50s, I believe you said.
Yes.
And that is considered the last place finish. And I know that they changed the name of it since 2024. Linden, a local transportation company, presents the award, and it's called the Committed to the Last Mile Red Lantern Award. And that was given to Jeff Reed, who came in 29th place with a time of 12 days, 11 hours, and 22 minutes. And if you got a chance to see the videos of Jeff, he was carrying a red lantern up Front Street there. Somebody had given it to him as he came off the sea ice and gave him that red lantern, and of course, he will carry on. I know our daughter Nicole received the Red Lantern Award for her first junior Iditarod, and if I remember correctly, that was also a Linden Transportation Award as well, and it is a red lantern attached to a trophy base and a very cool etched glass nameplate, if you will, that gives or pays homage to that last place finish. So we do have 3 Red Lantern Awards sitting up in our trophy case. I got 1 and Nicole got 2. She got 1 from that junior Iditarod and 1 also from the Willow Junior 100 race, her first ever quote-unquote distance race. And I got mine, as a matter of fact, from one of my first Iditarod qualifiers back in the day. I got it for the Goose Bay 150. So red lanterns are cool, but you only want 1 or 2 up there. Hopefully I will never receive another red lantern. I know you've done a few races, Michele, but you've never got a real Red Lantern Award, have you?
I'm usually not last. I'm usually middle of the pack or towards the end, but I'm not last.
Yeah, and for recent years, we've been doing a lot of sprint races in the local community, and we always have the slowest dogs because we're always racing up against those speedy hound dogs. So we are either, if not at the end, we're pretty dang close to the middle. So hopefully no more red lanterns in our future for sure. So Michele, I know this is going to be a shorter show than normal because we've pretty much ran out of our musher profiles. Our goal when we started this is we wanted to make sure that we profiled everybody this year who we had never profiled before. And with such a small field, we literally covered everybody that we had never spoken to before. So we are out of mushers, and we are out of our 90-second to 7-minute interviews that we did. We covered them all, and I think that we got some cool stuff, and hopefully provided our listeners with some new information. What do you think?
I think that we did just fine. Do you know what they're serving for the banquet tomorrow?
I have no idea.
I think we should find out.
Yeah, we should find out. So Nomites or Nomies or whatever you're called, if you are there in the know, what is on the menu for the banquet tomorrow? And what's the...
I would like to know well before we have tomorrow, so that maybe we could make it ourselves and we could enjoy what they're having to eat for dinner.
So that is our call to action tonight. We typically tell you to subscribe or tell your friends. So our call to action tonight, if you are in the know, what is on the menu for tomorrow's banquet? And I urge our listeners, and we will try to do the same, to try to have the same thing that they're serving at the banquet. Is it spaghetti? Is it prime rib? Is it hamburgers and hot dogs? What is it? I've never been to the finishers banquet, so this is all new to me. Our plan was to go together this year and cover it for mushing, but we will not be able to go to the banquet till next year. So let us know, guys, what's on tap for the banquet. So all that being said, we will be on a little bit later tomorrow night. So if you're on the East Coast, I hope that you will stay up and listen. We may do a somewhat live type podcast, not meaning live, but we will host it as it's going on and give you a play-by-play. So what that means is either Michele or I will have headphones in, listening to the speeches and the goings-on, and then we'll report back to that on the podcast, and then we will do our best to upload it as quickly as possible so you guys can listen in as well. So with that, hope you guys have a good evening, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Nobody covers dog sledding like Mushing from First Paw Media. Our team of athletes, volunteers, race organizers, and mushers like Robert and Michele Forto brings you closer to the sport. If it's happening, we are there. Live from the qualifying races in January and February, the Iditarod in March, and in the summer, Mushing takes you on the road with our team and trail tour. We connect you with a history of the sport, in-depth interviews with the top mushers, and great storytelling and breaking news all year long. Follow on mushing.com.